And we are now live. The meeting of the City of Socorro Civil Service Commission is set to begin. First and foremost, the City of Socorro would like to thank everyone and ask for your patience during this difficult time we have been presented with. Everyone, please remember to silence any electronics to avoid sound interruption. No disruptive behavior or outbursts will be tolerated, and violators are subject to call disconnection and possible prosecution. In accordance with Section 418.016 of the Texas Government Code and by order of the Office of the Governor issued March 16, 2020, the Civil Service Commission of the City of Socorro will broadcast the meeting scheduled today, Monday, June 22nd, 2020, at 6:30 p.m. from City Hall chambers located at 860 Rio Vista Road, Socorro, Texas, via telephone conference and live stream in order to advance the public health goal and practice social distancing to slow the spread of coronavirus COVID-19. The public that signed up and any presenters will be called upon by the presiding officer during the meeting to speak during public comment or their agenda item during the meeting following Government Code 551.042. La reunión del Servicio Civil de la Ciudad de Socorro está por empezar. Primeramente queremos darles las gracias y pedimos su paciencia durante estos momentos críticos que enfrentamos. Favor de poner en silencio todo equipo electrónico para evitar interrupción de sonido. No se va a tolerar ningún tipo de comportamiento perjudicial o revoltoso. A quien no siga estas reglas, su llamada será desconectada y puede ser infraccionado. De acuerdo con sección 418.016 del Código del Gobierno de Texas y por orden de la Oficina del Gobernador anunciada el 16 de marzo de 2020, la Comisión del Servicio Civil de la Ciudad de Socorro transmitirá su reunión hoy, lunes 22 de junio de 2020 a las 6:30 p.m. desde la sala del concilio localizada en 860 Rio Vista Road, Socorro, Texas, por medio de teléfono y será transmitida en vivo para tomar medidas preventivas para prevenir la propagación de la enfermedad del virus corona COVID-19 a los demás y por la seguridad del público. El público y los presentadores serán anunciados por el oficial conduciendo la reunión para poder hablar durante la sección del comentario público o después de la discusión del artículo de la agenda por cual se apuntaron siguiendo las reglas del gobierno 551.042.
Call the meeting to order at 6:33. Item number 2, Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, so we can get the Chief of Police to please do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3, Establishment of Quorum. Alex Miranda,
Here.
Ruben Garcia,
Present.
Jesse Montelongo,
Here.
and Albert Ortiz. Mr. Ortiz,
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
moving on to item number 4, we have no speakers for public comment. We move to the consent agenda. Item number 5, excuse absent council members. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to excuse absent council members. I'll second.
Alex Miranda,
Yes.
Ruben Garcia,
Yes.
Jesse Montelongo,
Yes.
and Albert Ortiz.
Yes.
Item number 6, regular agenda, discussion and action on approval of the police department's policies and procedures manual. Chief?
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, Commissioners. Just as a recap for this policy manual, the last time these police department had a review and implementation of a policy manual was 2006. There have been some additions made during that time, but not a complete review and or rewrite. So one of the jobs when I first came in a little over a year ago now was to look at our policy manual. And I understood at that time that our training sergeant had written a TCOL policy manual based on best practices. So as of 2019, which is the first time we presented this to you, those represented the TCOL best practices. So what I'm asking for is, and I know you had the policy manual for a little while now, so I can answer any questions that you may have on it. But what I'm asking for is an adoption of this policy manual because it brings us up to speed in excess of 13 years from when the last one was created.
Do we
I'll
have any
take it.
discussion? Do we have any discussion from the board?
Well, Chief, I've been reading mostly the Patrols Division, Standard
Yes.
Operational Procedures, and it's pretty well up to date. I mean, it's standard procedure. I don't know if you need to do any more changes, but I have been reading that area since I was public safety myself. Also, the others, I have been looking at it, and it's pretty well up to date.
Yeah, there's been, so we've had one legislative session since you guys took possession of this. So we will bring, what I'd like to do is have this approved and as a whole document, and then any upgrades or any additions that we have to make at that point will only be a few in number, and that's just to address any language changes that may be necessary based on some legislative changes that occurred last year.
Okay.
Chief, I have a question. I don't remember reading it. I mean, it's a pretty big, hefty item that the book that we're reading actually. Despite everything that's going on right now around the nation, is there anything on that stuff that we should address now or that should be addressed with any of the training that the officers get for physical restraints or anything of that sort? Or is that something
Right.
that's totally different?
No. So, President, and I think you're making a reference to chokehold. So let's talk about that for a minute. That is in our current policy manual because it's allowable by state law. Now, obviously, the law of the land can change, and then we would remove it or make the changes that we had to make. That being said, our language on that places it in the lethal force continuum, which means that it's not part of our normal patrol practices when it comes to effecting an arrest on somebody. And what that means is that an officer must realize that it is the last instrument or item that they have in order to save their life or the life of a third person. Practically, where you may see that used is when you have an individual on top of a victim. And that individual is causing serious physical injury and or potential death. And that hold may be used to remove the person from on top of the victim. Now, that being said, I have issued a standing order, which is not a policy manual yet, but it is a standing order because the policy doesn't speak to it as far as what we would use in the normal course of business. Now, even though we placed it in the lethal force continuum, I just wanted to put language out there for the police department to say when we would use it. So that is a standing order that is presently out just to clarify that for any of our officers.
Okay. Another question came up out of your response. Since it's a policy order and everything else, will those policies later on be implemented into this document? Yeah. And if so, what are the reviews and course of time frame that this document will be reviewed, and by whom will it be reviewed? For the yearly, bi-yearly, or how is it that you're going to be implementing this?
Right. So our policy manual actually speaks to that in the beginning section. and it says that we go under a yearly review. So that sits with the chief's office as far, and the reason why we did that is because there are legislative updates that come along, and language needs to be adjusted to make sure that we are in line with the policy. I then pass that along to our city attorney. City attorney gets a chance to review the language on there. And the overall umbrella that sits over all law enforcement in the state is TCO, which is a Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. And we make sure that our policy language, and that's what you've been reading, but our policy manual obviously has to match what TCO is putting out at that time. And that's, if there's any adjustment to duty to intervene, which is another conversation that's come up, or the chokehold, which is a conversation that's obviously come up, I expect that guidance to come from TCO, and then we will make the adjustments based on the language that we receive from them.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Do we have a motion?
Do we have any other further discussion before we make the motion?
I'll just note, I guess for the record, that I did review this document fairly diligently, and I tried to look for anything that might pose an issue. And I just want to say that I think it's fairly well written, and I'd like to approve it the way it is. But there are a few things that I thought might benefit the chief down the road, to give him a little bit more decision making. They're small, minor things, but for the expediency, I'd like to approve it the way it is right now. And if he feels comfortable enough with it as is, and he's asking us to accept it, I'd like to go ahead and do so, because he's been waiting long enough and needs to get going.
True. For the attorney, do you see anything, any red flags or anything that we should come up with? I mean, we've had a pretty good long time to review it and stuff. Have you seen anything that brought any red flags up, or are we good to go?
No, I reviewed the policies in depth. I provided the chief with many suggestions as far as tweaking language. And we also, the chief and I, we tried to simplify whenever we could. There was a lot in some of the TCO policies that really don't have an application for a police department our size. And so we condensed and removed some of the sections that TCO would normally have, because we just don't have as many divisions as a lot of police departments would. And so, I think both the chief and I worked collaboratively to really get this down to a position that it made sense for our department. It meets the legal requirements, but it doesn't have a lot of the excess policies that really only complicate things and really don't have an application for a smaller department like City of Socorro.
Okay, sounds good. So if there's no other questions or discussion, we can go ahead and if anybody wants to make the motion.
A motion
I'd
to
like to-
approve.
I'd like to second that. I'll second it.
And we have a speaker for this item, Miriam Cruz.
Okay, if we can go ahead and have her come in.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes,
Go ahead, you can start now.
thank you. Well, actually, a lot of my questions were answered. One of them was going to be whether the things that Chief Burden had mentioned at the last city council meeting were going to be introduced to this policy, since it wasn't published in any sort of backup, which I remember that most of this stuff with the Civil Service Commission usually has to stay under wraps. So I understand that, but that was my main concern. I just wanted to see about what Mr. Miranda brought up. So thank you for bringing up those questions and clearing that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz, for bringing that up, and thank you for taking the time.
Item number 7, discussion and action regarding request for grievance hearing for Brian Alvarado. Mr. Alvarado is an ex-employee from the Public Works Department who is requesting a hearing, and we're just here to set up the date for the hearing.
Okay, so what are we looking at?
Do you want to do it next month?
I don't have a problem with it. If we could do next month, a regular meeting, that's fine with me. I mean, the rest of we just gotta get together everybody else. That would be good.
Would July 20, that's our next regular meeting, July 27th? Would that work for everybody?
July
sorry,
27th, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, on my part, Albert Ortiz, on my part, yes.
As for me as well,
Mr. Garcia?
I'm okay with that.
Mr. Montelongo?
I'd like to second it. I'll second it.
Would July 27th work for you, Mr. Montelongo? Mr. Montelongo?
Yes. Go ahead, you can start now. Thank you. Actually, a lot of my questions were answered. One of them was going to be whether that Chief Burden had mentioned at the last city council meeting, we're going to be introducing this policy since it's not published. Any sort of backup. I remember that most of this stuff, civil courtesy usually has to stand a wrap.
I'm sorry. Who's talking?
And that was my main concern. I just wanted to.
that is on your guys' end. I believe it's what Ms. Cruz was talking.
Thank you for bringing up those questions. We got us.
Ms. Cruz,
This feedback tends to occur while we're
I know
in
there's
live
a
sessions.
feedback
It's
from
happened in
somewhere.
several of my meetings.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz, for bringing that up, and thank you for taking the time.
Are you all in agreement for July 27th for the hearing?
Action regarding request for grievance hearing for Brian Alvarado. Mr. Alvarado is a ex-employee from the Public Works Department.
Someone is playing back the audio and we need you to mute on your end, please.
Okay.
Sorry. Hello?
What are we looking at?
Do you want to do it next month?
Can you check to see who is unmuted other than myself right now?
We do next month a regular meeting. That's fine with me. I mean, the rest of the stuff will get under everybody else.
Mr. Montelongo, can you hear us?
July 20, that's our next regular meeting, July 27th. Does that work for everybody?
It works for me. Yeah, on my part, Albert Ortiz, on my part, yes. Sergeant Montelongo's part, yes. For me as well.
Sergeant Montelongo, are you in agreement with what Ms. Olivia has requested for item number 7 for the date July 27th? That is on the question that you are on right now.
I'm okay with that.
Mr. Montelongo?
Yes.
So may we have a motion, please?
Make a motion to have the hearing for Brian
Yes.
Alvarado for July 27th.
Can you hear me?
Do we have a second?
Well, I can hear you, Albert Ortiz, I can hear you. And I'm in agreement.
Yes, Debbie.
Do we have a second?
I second it, Albert Ortiz, I second it.
Alex Miranda?
Yes.
Ruben Garcia?
Yes.
Jesse Montelongo? Mr. Montelongo?
Mr. Montelongo, I need you to unmute.
Mr. Montelongo?
Can you hear me?
Yes. I need your.
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Albert Ortiz? Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Thank you. And then item number 8, adjourn. Do we have a, I'm sorry, we have a speaker for item number 7. Miriam Cruz.
Muted.
Ms. Cruz?
Disconnected.
We're on item number 7. She's been disconnected, so we just need a motion for item number 8 to adjourn.
Did we ever make the motion for number 6 and approve it?
Yes, we have a motion for item number 6.
I don't believe there was a vote on that, and so,
We never did anything on it.
yeah, I didn't hear a vote on item number 6.
Okay, so the motion was made by Alex Miranda, seconded by Mr. Montelongo. Alex Miranda,
Yes.
Ruben Garcia. Mr. Garcia?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Are we on a motion to adjourn? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, we didn't hear they didn't hear the vote for item number 6. So we went back to the vote for item number 6. for the-
Yes.
Yes.
And Albert Ortiz?
Yes.
Now I need a motion to adjourn.
Go ahead and
Yes.
make the motion to adjourn.
Yes,
Second.
ma'am. Yes. Can you hear me? Yes.
Do we have a second? To adjourn? I
I
just need,
second the motion to adjourn.
thank you, Mr.
I'll
Garcia.
second it.
Alex Miranda? Alex,
Yes.
Yes.
Ruben Garcia,
Yes.
Jesse Montelongo,
Yes.
and Albert Ortiz.
Yes.
So we adjourn at 6:52.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes.
All of you stay safe, okay? Thank you all.
Thank you all. Be safe out there. everyone.
Yes. Can you hear me?